Hello, this and my other YouTube videos are extracted from the History of Man series, currently 6 books published in print, ebook, and most importantly, audiobook. I'm a storyteller, and if you like these video stories, you'll love the History of Man series audiobooks. Great for commuting or just sitting back and relaxing. And unlike a novel you've read where you know the ending, you can listen to these books on tape more than once. There's so much to learn. Available on Amazon and audible.com, I narrate the audiobooks. And the best part about that is you can listen to these stories without having to look at my stupid face. And with that said, let's get the show on the road. Hello, I'm John Bershoff with a History of Man series installment. Today's subject, Global Warming 101, Part 1. So there's 3 other parts, and you should listen to them in order because they build, like science, on each other. Roger Revelle was born in Seattle, Washington in 1909. He studied geology at Pomona College. He did his PhD in oceanography at Berkeley, and his research was at Scripps Institute in San Diego. In 1957, he noticed oceans were absorbing less carbon dioxide, the corollary being more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Revelle attributed increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to fossil fuel burning, a dramatic uptick that began with the Industrial Revolution of the late 1800s. As an atmospheric gas, Revelle postulated that an increase in carbon dioxide would lead to an abnormal greenhouse effect, lead to abnormal global warming. It was perhaps the first time the phrase greenhouse effect and global warming were used by Revelle. Someone other than Revelle added the phrase climate change. Now, who exactly that was has been lost to history. What is the greenhouse effect? Simply stated, the more of certain gases in the atmosphere helps Earth retain heat from the sun. The atmosphere lets sunlight energy check in, paraphrasing the words of the 1976 Eagles song, Hotel California. Sun energy can check into Earth, but it can't leave. It can't check out easily. It can't leave. Of course, when Frey and Felder and Henley wrote that song for the Eagles, they weren't talking about global warming. They were referring to drug addiction. You check in and you can never check out. But anyway, important to understand global warming when arguing with someone on Facebook. You need to view my video on weather and climate and then watch these 4 videos. That the level of increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was fairly rapid, Revelle stated it could only be attributed to fossil fuel burning. Now, there is normal global warming after an ice age. It's normal. Over the 4 billion plus years Earth has existed, it has had 5 major ice ages and a bunch of minor ice ages. I once told my wife that the pants she was wearing made her butt look wide. There was a minor ice age in my home for the better part of a month. Anyway, I joke. The first Earth major ice age was probably 2.4 billion years ago. The last, the 5th major ice age, began 2.6 million years ago and ended about 20,000 BC when global temperatures began to rise to about 57 degrees Fahrenheit at about 10,000 BC, which is 14 degrees centigrade for you metric people. And that is where the Earth has hovered ever since, 57 degrees Fahrenheit, average global temperature. That is correct. Although global temperatures might fluctuate year to year like a picket fence, up and down, like a pogo stick, they hover or average 57 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, what triggers an ice age? I'm glad you asked. It's very interesting. As Earth makes its solar orbit around the sun, three factors need to be considered when it comes to being toasty or not toasty. It's the oblong orbit, the solar orbit around the sun. It's the Earth tilt on its axis, and it's the Earth spin on the tilted axis every day. But oblong orbit around the sun, tilted axis, and daily spin are not immutable. They vary. They have periodicities. Earth's solar orbit. This is every 100,000 years, the orbit of Earth about the sun is not quite on the same axis. It varies. Not the shape of the orbit, but the ecliptic plane, like a seesaw, known as the orbital variation or the eccentricity of Earth's orbit every 100,000 years. The Earth axis tilt is 23.5 degrees, but over 41,000 years, that tilt varies between 22.1 and 24.5 degrees. This is called or termed its obliquity. Earth's daily spin, that spin at the equator, is about 1,000 miles per hour to make one revolution to cover the 7,900 mile diameter at the equator. That spin has a slight wobble, like a spinning top that is starting to slow down. Although that's not what Earth is doing, it's not slowing down, it just has a slight wobble. That wobble takes about 26,000 years to go between the one point and the next. So you have eccentricity, you have obliquity, and you have this wobble termed precession. Those three things are important. When you add 100,000 year seesaw solar eccentricity plus the 41,000 year axis tilt obliquity plus the 26,000 year wobble precession, they influence how much sunlight, solar energy reaches the Earth, how much it receives or does not receive. And at a certain point, when they align, those three periodicities, they align just right with less sunlight, an ice age is triggered. With numbers like 100,000 and 41,000 and 26,000 years, it can take several million years or more for those numbers to align in such a way as to trigger an ice age. Serbian scientist Milankovitch in the 1920s figured this out. They are called Milankovitch variables. He and his variables were largely ignored as the majority of climatologists could not accept that celestial events could influence Earth climate. They felt Earth climate was Earth formed. And now, as an aside, the cycle between normal ice age and a normal global warming has been responsible for many extinction events of species on Earth, which is a whole nother subject in itself, as was the asteroid strike that doomed the dinosaurs into extinction. But when you go into ice ages, you lose species. When you go into global warming, particularly if it gets pretty hot, normal hot global warming, you also lose species. They're extinction events. Of course, earthly events too do play a role in climate and climate change, such as plate tectonics, which you might know by continental drift, volcano activity, and earthquakes. They also play a role in going in and out of ice ages and in between ice ages, what the climate is like. But as those periodicities align, as less solar energy strikes Earth towards the polar regions of Earth, especially not colder winters as you would think, but surprisingly colder summers when the ice does not melt from the previous winter is the final trigger for an ice age. Like a dog chasing its tail. Ice doesn't melt in the summer as it's supposed to. Come the next summer, the ice reflects solar energy even more. The ice does not melt, and on and on and on, and the ice builds up. The ice sheets build up. That's what is triggering the ice age. Now, more of our planet's water in an ice age gets locked up in the ice caps and ice sheets. Sea levels drop. More carbon is absorbed by the oceans. Oddly, cold water actually absorbs carbon dioxide better than warm water, pulls it in out of the atmosphere. Also, ocean plankton, bacteria that use carbon dioxide and sunlight for its energy, pulls all that great CO2, carbon dioxide, out of the atmosphere. Temperatures are dropping because the periodicities followed by a drop in sea levels as polar ice caps build up and a drop in atmospheric carbon dioxide is pulled into the oceans. Remember, Ravel noticed the opposite, though. He was noticing that less carbon dioxide was being pulled into the oceans, leading to what he called a greenhouse effect. Now, remember that when we next discuss Global Warming 101, Part 2. So that's Part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. I have a style of writing in my books. There's 6 of them, the History of Man series. I'm writing more. It's a style of writing called jumping off, where I have a base subject, medicine and science, and I jump off into other areas, into astronomy, into art, music, whatever. I always come back to the base story, but I jump off. It's a style of writing that's kind of difficult to write, but difficult to follow, and it's not for everybody. But I promise you, with the turn of every page, you'll learn something. These books are print, Amazon e-Kindle, and on audiobooks, and I do the narrating on the audiobooks. So I hope you enjoyed this. Watch Part 2, Part 3, Part 4 of Global Warming, and thank you very much for listening. Have a good day and be well.